Well, what's the role of art in a healthy culture?
You said that acting allows you to be many things.
Well, I think all of us are everything. And if you're hired to do a job, the director doesn't hire you to act like that person. The director hires you to become that person. Acting is not pretending. Acting is becoming. It's surrendering to the spirit of whatever that character you're describing is. It's a thing called stage fright. That's when you're in the middle. You've given part of yourself up to be the character, but your ego and your fear and paranoia is watching how you give it up.
The artists are the people who first articulate the unknown.
And that's admirable. It takes courage. You're on a ride. You have to trust, surrender totally to the moment. One of my great acting teachers, he said, I'm going to make it real simple for you. He said, it's like falling into darkness backward. Imagine just falling into darkness backward. No control of your landing, just fall. Well, suppose there's a rock back there, or suppose there's the writer is saying to you, I want you to fall into darkness backward. I want you to become them by falling into darkness backward. Can you do that?
And so the role of artists in a healthy culture is to bring to public awareness elements of being that have not yet entered the collective consciousness.
You're considered one of the best guitar players in the world.
No.
Well, one of the best in this studio, anyway.
How about one of the best sitting in this chair? How about
Yeah. Do you have to practice every day the way a violinist does? I mean, if you're not working.
Yeah, well, I like to play to myself in the room, or before we go on stage or something like this, or whenever I feel like, whenever I feel down or depressed or whatever, I just go on and play. And I can't practice, so it's just always constantly, what do you call it, like a jam, It's hard for me to remember any notes because I'm constantly trying to create other things. That's why I make a lot of mistakes.
Do you read music?
No, not at all.
No.
People talk about the saint-like quality. Well, I don't mean it in a negative way, but there is an aura about you.
I don't relate to that, for one thing. I sort of taught myself that early, not to believe that that's who I am. That's not me.
Yeah.
And so I don't relate to it. And luckily, the kind of fame that I'm involved in, whatever, such as it is low enough of a profile so that I'm not constantly being reminded of it.
People don't run up for autographs and so forth.
No, it's much cooler than that. The media relation to the reality is. It's always wrong, I believe. I believe it never is very accurate because of just everything. Language itself is one heavy bias.
So you can imagine that we're all living on an island, and many of us are in the center of the island, far enough away so that maybe we can't even see the shoreline and we can't see the ocean. That's where our borders end, but we're distant from. The artists are right on the edge.
I remember many times being told that I shouldn't be doing all the things that I do on the same project, and that was back in the 80s. I could go into all the reasons why, but I always thought it was just stupid, so I ignored them. And now it's kind of the accepted way to do things. I mean, look how we work now. But back then, I'm sure it rubbed some people the wrong way. I've listened to this album countless times, and I'm still surprised. I think it's a masterpiece. However, it took 3 years to finish. And it wasn't what everybody expected. Even though it was a highly anticipated album, it only had one single reach the Billboard 100. The momentum he had built up over the years was gone. However, he was still respected and sought out. Soon after the album came out, Billy Preston, who was playing keyboards with the Rolling Stones, approached him about joining the band for their upcoming world tour. Shuggie declined the offer. He said no to David Bowie, Spirit, Buddy Miles, Blood, Sweat and Tears, and others. He told Quincy Jones, who wanted to help produce his next album, that he didn't need a producer. Now you gotta remember, even though he was young, he'd been making records for years with stars, traveling the world, learning and growing. He was just coming into his own. He didn't want to be anybody else's sideman. He didn't want anyone else calling the shots. He wanted to be his own man, doing his own thing. And he did. and he made a record that was ahead of its time. But that wasn't enough for the record label, and soon he was dropped. He kept recording and sending out tapes assuming he'd get another deal. I mean, after all, his last single had charted, and so far, his life momentum had seemed preordained. But he just couldn't get a deal. And back then, if you didn't have a record deal, you pretty much didn't have a career. So, he kind of disappeared. I got into this for the music. I also wanted to live my life a certain way, and that's what drives my choices. I've been told many times, you're throwing your career away. And you know what? I might have made more money if I had followed that beaten path. I'm just telling you all this to say that I think I get it now, and that this industry and the world does not like it when you don't do what's expected of you. But back to the story. Suge's music had not disappeared. In fact, it had gained a cult following. In 2001, Inspiration Information was re-released on Luwaka Bop, which is a label owned by David Byrne from the Talking Heads. This re-release contained 4 songs from Suge's second album, Freedom Flight. People had been sampling his music for years.
I wanna see you real bad.
This is actually from the Brothers Johnson version of Strawberry Letter 23. And they continue to sample his music.
They're expanding the landscape. They're moving the culture forward into the unknown, and they do that by translating what is as of yet unimaginable, but sensed, into what is at least imaginable and represented in image and drama and literature.
I'm going to end this video with part of an interview that Suge did in 2019.
Kind of like 40 years I've been waiting.
And most of all, be unique.